This episode of Rookie Hunter is brought to you by the Wild Sheep Foundation. Become a member, join the Lesson 1 Club, and attend their annual convention, Sheep Show, Reno, Nevada in 2020. For more information, go to wildsheepfoundation.org. Hey guys, welcome to episode 110. On this one, Kelly's out in the boat with Jason Webster and Danny Coyne. Danny Coyne has been on the podcast before, way back when. Some of you longtime listeners will recognize his name for sure. He's with BCFishn. If you want to hear more fishing stuff, let us know. Send us an email, info@therookihunterpodcast.com. Maybe we can send Kelly out on more fishing adventures. Big thank you to everybody who checked out the Faces of Wildlife podcast. Somehow, you got it up to number 1 in iTunes, which is unheard of for a brand new podcast. So a huge thank you to everybody who's subscribed and left a review. The first full-length episode, as I said, will be live next Tuesday, and that one's all about mule deer. So big thank you to you guys. Really appreciate that. It means a lot to me. As some of you know, I was up in Alaska last week. I brought a lot of Sitka gear with me for that trip. We did some camping out in the Alaska wilderness on the ocean. And a new addition to my lineup is the Sitka shooter glove. These are nice, lightweight, tight-fitting glove that are great for just everyday use. I put them on to gather campfire wood and keep the mosquitoes off. I pretty much didn't take them off. You can check those out. They're on sale right now too. If you're interested in them, good for these early season warmer hunts. Good ventilation on them. Check them out, sitkagear.com. Please become a member of the Wild Sheep Foundation. You can do so by going to wildsheepfoundation.org. And you better get yourself a blade, or get one for someone you like, get one for your hunting buddy, get one for your old man or your mom or whatever. They got kitchen knives, they got everything up there. northarmknives.com. Let's get into this episode. Sit back, relax, crack a nice cold beer, and enjoy episode 110 with Kelly, Jason, and Danny.
So we're out here on Wood Lake, Canada Day long weekend. There's worse places to be.
That's right.
It's a perfect day. We got a little bit of overcast. Water is, you can get your water ski out. Right now it's glass. And maybe I'll let you guys introduce yourself. So we're on Danny's boat here, so maybe we'll start with you.
Sure. I'm Danny Coyne with BCFishn.com, and also with the Osceola Fishing Game Club Fisheries Committee. Yep.
Yeah.
Jason Webster. I'm a fisheries biologist out of Vernon. With my business is Cara Consulting. I don't have any other affiliation.
Nice.
Oh, I'm a member of the Kalamalka Fly Fishing Club.
Yeah,
There you go.
exactly.
Awesome. Yeah, well, thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah, no worries.
We already have one fish in the boat.
Yep.
So we'll see what happens as we keep going. Might have to jump up here and grab a rod, but
This show may be interrupted by a bent rod.
It's a good thing.
yeah, exactly. And Danny, we had you on the show before. I can't remember what episode it was, but we did a pretty in-depth rundown on Kokanee
Yeah,
fish.
we talked a lot about breaking it down, how does someone get into it, and what they need to get on some fish.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's such a cool fish. It's a good way to enter the kind of fishing hobby, I think. Like, you bring people out for Kokanee fishing, and you might get one fish that day, you might get nothing, or rainbow, sorry. You bring them out here, and you get a bucket of fish in the boat. Like, it's just a blast.
Oh yeah,
If it's a good day, obviously.
Absolutely. And that's the great thing about, especially with what's going on with the in BC, the Freshwater Fish Society of BC is really starting to stock more fisheries with kokanee, because it is exactly that. People can get out, you can approach it in a mannerism of it's a family, fishing event where, you don't really need that much. You can 12-foot little tinner and, we'll leaf in a wedding ring, and you're gonna get on some fish.
Yeah.
Or you can approach it like we are right now with stacked rods and the downriggers and really going after them. And because of that, we've seen quite a bit of spike in angler interest, especially in the BC interior. And with the opportunity kind of that we're losing in fishing on the West Coast with the whole salmon ordeal, more and more guys are starting to look at fresh water, and then they I don't want to really say it, but they kind of turn their nose up to freshwater, and then they get out here and they start fishing kokanee. But that's a blast! Like we got to do more of this, and not to mention they are really one of the best table fare fish that you can get, right? So
Yeah, that's true.
yeah.
Yeah, and for the size, you know, pound for pound, I think they have the most fight.
Oh yeah, they're scrappy.
Yeah.
And aerial.
Yes,
The best thing. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Especially if you get into areas like the caribou. I mean, you're getting the 3-pound fish that are fighting like almost like equivalent to like a 5-6 pound rainbow. They exhaust
Right.
so much energy when they're hooked on, and you know we're fishing with light gear, so
Yeah.
that also you're almost like finesse fishing for these scrappy fish. So it's
Yeah.
a lot of fun that way.
Yeah, not like the old school gang troll that you can't feel the fish until you have it in the net.
That's right. Is it still on? I don't know. Just keep reeling. Yeah. I mean, that is one of the nice things now with all the new tackle out there. You know, everything's micro dodgers and hoochies
Yeah.
and that kind of thing. So you can use lighter rods. You're fighting the fish, not the gear.
Yeah.
Great for kids. You can use it on spinning reels. You know,
Yeah.
You can use it on whatever. It's turning into quite the fishery. I mean, the kokanee craze started really up in. It kind of started back in the 90s in Northern California, lower Oregon, and then it's made its way up to the Pacific Northwest into Washington. And then about really, I'd say like 8 years ago, BC started to kind of kick off. And then you saw more and more people start posting online about it. And then now it's just, that's what people are going after.
Yeah.
Right? So it's good. I'm excited to see it go. And it gets us eager to get out there and do conservation efforts towards it, you know, because like anything else, it has to be sustainable, and it's up to us to be the stewards for it and make sure that the fisheries are going to last.
Yeah. So, like at a high level with kokanee, what's the distribution like? Because we got listeners in the States, like across the States, Canada, like Australia, wherever.
Yeah,
Essentially, it's a landlocked salmon.
that's right.
So, where can folks find kokanee? West usually?
Yeah, so I mean, unless they're planted, but the natural kokanee stocks and where they thrive the best is going to be mainly in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah.
They're landlocked sockeye salmon, so you know where sockeye would have originally migrated to is where you're going to find kokanee. So
West of the Rockies.
west of the Rockies.
Okay.
Yeah, and then also over Japan has them. I
Oh, wow.
believe so, because it's on that side of the Pacific, if I remember right. And then on that side of the Pacific, there's you know, because again, it's the Pacific Ocean sockeye, right?
Right.
So
you have a trip to Japan coming up?
no.
I wonder if they're in like the Soviet Union, the far
I
east.
read once that they were up in Russia once, like you know,
Russia. Jeez.
Yeah, I don't
Look at
know.
me, I'm just talking.
Yeah, like just age yourself there, Jason. Yeah, but you know, like now, like Idaho, for example, has an incredible kokanee fishery that they're pulling in amazing fish, and again, that's you know stocking systems. And the nice thing about kokanee is you can take a lake that's got a lot of coarse fish in it, that's you know high competitive with rainbow trout. The rainbows, they will not thrive in because there's too much competition, but because kokanee are microfeeders. They're feeding over deep water on zooplankton,
Yeah.
and they're not competing. So we can take a fishery. I'll use Monty Lake as an example. Monty Lake here in BC was one of the first lakes that the ministry used for their triploid program. And I mean, it was never really that great of a fishery. And there's too much competition there for rainbows and such. Now, it's still a good rainbow fishery because of stocking efforts, but the kokanee thrive in there because it's so nutrient of a rich lake.
Right.
So, and those are triploids because there's no area for them to really spawn in. So, we got
Fish
fish
on.
on rod number 1 here, guys.
There you go.
So, let's see.
Gave you a love tap anyway.
How long have you been working this lake, Jason?
Well, this region,
Yeah.
and this lake is obviously covered by this region. Around 96, 97
Oh,
is
wow.
when I started, yeah.
Yeah,
And the attention was on Wood Lake
Yeah.
right off the bat because of its value as a fishery, right?
yeah,
It's had its ups and downs, for
yeah,
sure.
that's what I'm.
Yeah.
It's a good example of a lake that's had its ups and downs. And when you talk about conservation, it seems like a good one that we could kind of maybe we could give a synopsis of kind of where the lake's been, because there was a crash and
There was, yeah.
Was that 2010?
2011.
Okay.
2011. They had, I mean, there's usually two issues with this lake. Water supply is one for the spawning kokanee, and the other is in lake conditions, like in particularly in the summer or late summer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they develop that. The lake can develop a squeeze play, where the water has not enough oxygen on the bottom,
Yeah.
and then the top layers are too warm, so it squeezes them into a band. And in 2011, that band just wasn't big enough, or just wasn't able to support fish, and we had a visible kill.
Right.
Yeah. And it might have happened, that's the only time that it was actually recognized. And you look at the graph of spawner numbers that we have, and there's some ups and downs, and you wonder, oh, look, in 1999 there was a dip, maybe there was a kill like that we didn't notice, right? But it's just that 2011 one was noticed, and it, you could see all the age classes of kokanee were affected, and we didn't get the fishery back until exactly 4 years after that, right?
So do you guys see like a cyclical 4-year?
You don't.
No.
There's a little bit of a one on the when you're looking at the numbers, but
Yeah.
it's really is hard to predict, because like I said, you could have that big year, and then that year that they were in the creek, the water was incredibly low and warm,
Right.
and we lose a lot of the eggs to fungus or getting dewatered, right?
Yeah.
So just because we have a big run, and you think, 4 years from now it's going to be another big run, it gets negated by other conditions like the water.
Interesting.
Right, Danny?
Always comes down to water.
It does. That's our big issue. And I mean, there's 2 creeks that flow in here.
Yeah.
We do have shore spawners in the lake, but traditionally the creek spawners outnumber them, 5 to 1.
Okay.
And there's 2 creeks, Middle Vernon Creek and Winfield Creek. Winfield Creek has about 5 to 10% of the fish, and Middle Vernon Creek is the big one.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from Duck Lake. It actually comes from the Aberdeen Lake Plateau and kind of goes around into Duck Lake and out of Duck Lake and into here. And normally, on a normal fall in late September, we don't have any water coming from Duck Lake. It's all coming from this little brook, Knopf Brook it's called, and that's our main water supply. So they're always trying to find ways to get water from Duck Lake, right?
Right. So in the fall, you guys are going to those creek mouths and trying to count as many fish.
We
as
do,
you can.
yeah. All the creeks in the Okanagan, we
Yeah.
do stream walk enumerations, yeah.
Right.
But Wood Lake, because I said it's such a valuable fishery, and there's other reasons too. They actually have run a fish trap on the lake in the last 10 years. We've done it 5 or 6 times, and it's a way of knowing exactly how many fish are going up there. Because when we do our visual counts, there's always an error, and we have a conversion. So we count the creek 5 times, we get a peak of 10,000 fish. There's this conversion of 1.5. Very, it's a rough estimate, and we've discovered that 1.5 number is too low, because when we do our trap and we compare it to the 1.5 conversion, it's way off. There's way more fish than the 1.5.
Wow.
And that was one of the main reasons why the trap was installed, to take a look at that 1.5 conversion. So it's more like 2.3,
Right.
2.4, 2.5.
Is that one of the reasons we saw the limit go up in this lake?
Yeah.
Just-
We had 2 huge runs in 16 and 17, 2016, 2017. And that combined with they have these fancy sonar hydroacoustics that they do. It just shows that there's a ton of fish in the lake, right? So that's what justified it. And it, geez, you just put it down and bang.
Whatever you did there, they like that.
Oh, look at that. See the 2 rod system, Danny, right?
Yeah.
Oh, I can see him. He's fighting.
All right.
It's
On this one, buddy?
Sure.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm better at net. Just keep it that way.
What was that one at, Danny? What depth?
27.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a 6-to-1 gear ratio on that, or 6-to-3, so it's pretty quick. So you don't have to. It'll bring it in pretty quick. Just make sure there's a bend on that rod. Nice thing is about these rods, or Kokanee rods, they're super limber.
Oh, look at that. He hit the water and boom, popped off.
So
That was a little piece.
best you can do is when you're rolling it, run out the side, and then I bury that rod tip in the water a lot because as soon as that gear comes up out of the water, it's got so much pressure. And as soon as see how it broke, and then well, not broke the surface, but that's alright. Little guy, he wants to go back anyways.
Yeah. He kind of floated there for a while.
Then he dove back down.
He was rubbing it in.
Yeah. I think he
He's just stunned.
he
What
gave me the fin
happened?
there.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
He gave me the middle
Gave
fin.
you a little middle fin.
What goes through a fish's head, when he bites a little thing that's a quarter the size of him, and all of a sudden he gets dragged through the water?
Yeah.
If they had any mental capacity, you gotta figure it's gotta be pretty traumatic on them that way.
Yeah, exactly.
As long as they don't go back and tell their friends.
That's right.
What was the depth on that one, Danny?
That was 27 feet. Yeah.
Okay. Right around that 30 still.
Yeah, it's starting to establish a thermocline pretty good there. You can
Oh, is that right already, Dan?
start to see that
Yeah.
those fish will start to stack. And then,
Oh, that's when it's game over on
what's
them.
that water? 60 what?
65.
That's actually pretty low for this time of year.
It is,
That's
isn't it?
good.
Yeah.
Oh, you got one here.
There you go.
Still on. I lost him. We're to school. Yeah, that's a good sign. You slowed it down too, eh?
Yeah, we're at
1.2?
1.3. 1.2, 1.3. Yeah.
He baited us, dude.
This is what happens when you're poking, like the guy baiting the rods and putting them down. It's like left or right with the side of the boat when you get into a good school. This makes it fun.
There's such a, these kokanee, I just get a kick out of them. I'm a rainbow fisherman, but the kokanee, they have such a will to live, and they're so determined. They only got 3 or 4 years, right? And then they have an orgy, and then they die.
Yeah.
So they got to make the most of it.
Yeah.
The life of a kokanee in a tweet.
Right? Yeah.
Oh, nice. Okay, what were we talking about? We were talking about this lake specifically, but
Yes.
so can folks help out with these counts?
Yeah,
Can they
so
get involved or?
best thing to do is to contact either through me through BCFishn.com or the Osula Fishing Game Club. And we really heavily rely on volunteers for the fish counts. We're running them from mid-September to usually end of October. And last year we had 52 students came out from UBCO, which was awesome because they get some experience, hands-on experience with it. But we do one check in the morning, one check in the afternoon. And it's awesome on how many people come out to help with that. Because without the community showing up, this is what I've learned on all fisheries, is that without community involvement and us stepping up as stewards, the government the ministry only has so many hands. So the more we step up, the more they tend to step up as well, right? One of the big projects we've worked on this year was here in Wood Lake, for example. The creek spawning numbers have been consistent since they rebounded very nicely. And we trapped all those fish, got the data. The ministry said, okay, we can increase the limit from 2 fish to 5 because it's sustainable. So we can confidently say that because we hand counted every one of those fish that came up the creek. So there's no doubt in our minds that there's lots of fish in the system right now. However, when Jason went out and did his visual counts the last couple of years, we found that the shore spawners visually have disappeared. Like they went from average 2,500-ish or so down to a handful. But through angler creel surveys and taking the genetic samples of them, it's still saying that there's shore spawning fish in this lake. So we don't know where they went. Have they extended their season? Because when do you normally do it till mid-October or end of October?
20th of October.
20th
we start
October?
to the 10th of November. That's their usual window. Yeah.
Right. But there are other systems out there that kokanee spawn in late November, beginning of December sometimes. So what we're going to do this year is we're we're going to get some more funding. Actually, last night we were at a fundraiser. One of the pubs, Woody's Pub in Lake Country here, along with West Side Stores, they stepped up and they donated a bunch of prizes, and we did a fundraiser event to raise a bunch of money to get funding to do more visual counts. I mean, that's boat time, biologist time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot that goes into that. So we're going to hopefully be able to get that going this year and track down where these fish went to, right?
Yeah.
So, and
the genetics could be wrong.
The kinetics, yeah, that's right. Right, things do change, and I mean those fish could have changed and
The
start.
people
going up
doing
and-
them wouldn't like to hear me say that.
No,
As somebody who's out in the field all the time, and I just can't believe that they're there still. I mean, why would they change? We haven't changed our methodology.
Yeah.
We do exactly the same timing, and then 1 year they're there, and the last 3 years we've seen less than 100 fish, and normally we get 2,000.
Yeah.
And spots that they've been at every time, without doubt, for 15 years,
Yeah.
they just weren't there anymore. There's a lot of things going on here too. Like the highway was built.
Yeah.
The rail trails
boat
being
launches were all
adjusted.
changed.
Yeah. I mean, there's factors that we don't know that might affect it. But
yeah,
what Danny was getting at with extending the counts is that these accusations that maybe we're missing them, or they're spawning deeper or something like that, which seems strange to me, because why would they change, right? After they do things for 15 years straight, and all of a sudden 1 year they don't do it anymore.
Yeah.
I mean, fish are funny; they do strange things, but by extending these counts into later into the season, we can cancel that out, right? Oh no, we did it all.
That's right.
Right till the end till ice on, if it does ice on.
yeah. We don't want to be guessing. If we don't have to be guessing, that's the best thing
It's
to do. Right?
it's baffling,
Yeah.
and it's disturbing for somebody like me who's gone out there every year and sees them, and you see them in their environment doing their thing, and boom, they're gone.
Right.
We saw 50 fish last year, and that was a stretch. Very strange, very strange. And the genetics say that they're still there.
Yeah.
It sucks as a person that goes out there and does the counting to be told that you're missing them. Bugs me.
Yeah.
I go, well, maybe your genetics is wrong.
So do you have to? Are you going to extend it, or?
That's
what
the
we're trying to
idea.
work
Yeah.
on. Yeah. So the club's going to try to get some. We're going to get the funding. We've got some volunteers, including myself. We'll come out here, and boat time's the most expensive, right? So
Right.
if we can get some of our volunteers to volunteer their boats, it allows Jason to sit on the bow and do his thing, count
And minus 10.
and minus 10.
Yeah.
So we'll see on that. The one real exciting thing that we're looking at this year is putting our fish trap in the Coldstream Creek, which is in the Kalamalka Lake system. Now, this lake, I thought we were going to pull a new world record out of that lake, because I think right now it's 9.63 pounds out of Oregon, and guys were catching 9-pound kokanee the last couple of years.
So close.
Like
Yeah.
it's right on that border.
Wow.
I think one guy got it, but I think he went home and ate it instead of measuring it.
Yeah.
Like,
Doyle.
Doyle,
often,
yeah.
How often does that happen?
Oh, I think it happens everywhere. You
Yeah.
guys don't really understand what
No.
they tied into, and,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden, the world record's being eaten. But I mean, that's just more of an ego thing for us Canadians. We want the record back from,
Yeah, exactly.
from the States, because we used to have it out of Okanagan Lake. But
Yeah.
but what's happening there is we've got a whole bunch of shore spawners, which are tiny fish, about 10 inches, about that.
Yeah, 11 at the
11
most,
inches, yeah. And which are plentiful to catch. And then we have these bigger fish in the system that are, I mean, they're almost averaging 2 pounds, 3 pounds of fish. And when you tie into those kokanee, it's like getting into a real sockeye.
Yeah.
So we want to trap that creek. We're working with ministry on it. Again, so our volunteer is going to go up there. This is a big project, so anyone that wants to step up and volunteer and literally get their hands on fish for 40 to 50 days, we're going to count those fish and see what's in that system. And we need to do it a couple years. I think I think we want to look at 5 years together, another program, and then we want to make sure that we're creeling, doing the angler creel surveys, and that's where Jason and his team are out there interviewing the anglers, collecting the data for rod hours to fish, and then you're taking biosamplings, right?
Yeah.
Of the fish to make sure they're healthy.
Angling pressure.
Yeah. So that way we can hopefully, if that fishery can sustain a limit increase, just like how we went from 2 fish to 5 fish on Wood Lake. And these 2 lake systems are connected by a small channel. So think of it also too on an enforcement aspect, is that you got 2 fish on one side and 5 fish on the other. you know how that's going to play out
Yeah.
with some people. So
Yeah.
I do hope on the enforcement side it does change, or it becomes consistent with each other. But also too, knowing I fish that lake a lot. I mean, we probably have our limit right now within an hour of those little shore spawners.
Yeah.
You know, 2 fish each. So I think they can be thinned out a little bit, but we need to study and make sure that we're not going to hurt that good cold stream stock, because that's a world class fish in the.
That's the worry, is that Cow Lake doesn't get a lot of pressure. We're only getting, even on weekends, we're only getting 8 boats out there on weekends. It's a lake that's, 3 times the size of Wood Lake, and it gets a quarter of the pressure. So we don't think that angler harvest is an issue. So they're ready to go to 5 fish limit there. It's just they want the data to support it. So
Which is good, because
they don't want to do anything like they did in the 60s where they just do it.
Yeah, when it comes to fish wildlife, scientific, right, decisions, making educated decisions, not emotional decisions.
Yeah.
We have too many of these emotional, unrational decisions being made on the wildlife side.
Yeah.
And it's like,
Is that right?
It's
Is
a,
it?
well,
It's
the
a
grizzly
common
bear
thread
hunt.
there, yeah. Yeah,
So-
grizzly bear hunt's gone.
Yeah,
They're going after lynx and cougar, and
that's right.
it seems to be an education issue throughout. Like, I don't think people know you can eat cougar,
Oh, it's one of the best meats.
and it tastes like pork.
Well, I just think of meow, meow when I'm eating it. I just unless it's in sausage, then I don't.
Yeah.
I don't.
But proactive scientific data, that's important for sure.
Yeah. And that's the thing. It's the neat thing is that we can get involved in it just as a normal angler, a normal community member. And last night we had a lady that came out, and she's more of a bird watcher than anything else. And she says, I've heard about what you guys are doing. She's like, I really want to, I'm interested to get my hands on fish. Can I help out? I'm like, absolutely. So I asked her, do you fish? She's like, never went fishing before in my life. She's like, but it's on the natural side. She's like, I can't get more of an intimate, experience with these fish than actually going in and helping you guys do this survey. And it's neat. We're lucky here in the Okanagan. We've got a lot of people, active clubs of the BCWF. We've got lots of clubs in Region 8, and they tend to step up and help out. And the youth have been incredible. The students have been showing up and giving a lot of support that way. So we'll see what the numbers bring this year.
That's right.
Yeah.
This balance that we'll say we're always working on in this lake. It's hard to keep up with, really. It changes all the time, but you just want to utilize it. You want to have the anglers as happy as possible. Give them the opportunity to catch as many and as large a fish as possible. And like Danny and I were talking about, at the same time, you don't want to jeopardize the numbers, the population.
Yeah, conservation first, not opportunity.
Yeah,
that is always first.
Always
Yeah.
that. It is a balance, but it's always that. And the government loves to provide. And not that I'm speaking on behalf of them. It's just that they love to generate revenue. Basically, is what it is, right? So you get more anglers out here, the better, as far as they're concerned. I mean, a lot of fishermen wouldn't agree with them, but they want to provide the opportunity to catch bigger and more fish.
Yeah.
As long as they're not, like I said, as long as they're not hurting the numbers, they'll do it.
Yeah, the last assessment of Wood Lake for economic benefit was $1 million. Is pretty much what they put the label onto it. So for the District of Lake Country, this is $1 million fishery to this local economy. So we're spoiled to have it in this area, but we just have to take care of it. Yeah. Water keeps coming down to water.
Yeah.
It sure does.
Yeah.
Balance.
Just like we just noticed how low the lakes are this year.
Oh, it's extremely
You
low.
get 2 years, 2 years of flooding,
Yeah.
like we did in 17 and 18.
Yeah.
And the alarm bells go off, and everybody on the shoreline with docks, it says you can't do this. And so this past winter, they lowered the lake down, with the worry that maybe there would be flooding again. And of course, we had a low snowpack and not much, a very dry spring. And what are we left with? Lakes that they didn't even get to full pool, right?
Yeah.
And we just got to hope that they can hang on. I mean, in natural situations, everything is controlled by dams and stuff on these systems, right?
Yeah.
But even in the old days before dams, sure, there was years of flooding, there was years of drought. So it's not like the fish can't handle it. But we just have to be careful doing that,
Yeah.
controlling it too much, controlling nature.
Yeah, it's a very, whether we're talking hunting or fishing, it's all the same theme, it seems.
Yeah.
A lot of folks don't want us to touch or manage things, but I mean, balance is key, and whether they know it or not, we're all kind of impacting, whether it's this lake or the wild, like from a province, from a bigger sense.
Yeah, exactly.
But, yeah, we're definitely having an impact in one way or the other. I always find it interesting because the people that value, like, say, this lake the most, like, one big bucket is the anglers, right? There's a lot of other buckets, but
The yahoos.
they they might be
That's what you're going to
harvesting
talk
fish.
about, right? Yeah.
They're harvesting fish, but at the end of the day, they want to have sustainable fishery here.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I wasn't. I thought you were going to jump to the yahoos that go water skiing.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. Not the fishermen. All you fishermen out there, I'm not calling you yet.
yeah. Well, the folks that care about the fish, and I guess if we take it back to like mule deer and all the other species,
It's amazing
we're
how many
associating
people.
value to them, right?
Yeah.
So we want to protect them, but we're getting bashed, I think, by whether it's anti-hunters or whoever, that we're just killing them and taking them, but we ultimately want to see them there.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well if it wasn't for the anglers, there'd be no fish in this lake.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's the history of the club, doing all their egg takes and during the crash way back, without their efforts. I mean, we are the number one conservationists.
Yeah.
We're here. I mean, we were the first when we started to run into when that fish kill happened in this lake. Our club was one of the first stakeholders to step to the table to talk about water.
Yeah.
And we applied for the HETF grants, the Habitat Conservation Trust Foundation grants. That's where all the money. That's $10 of every licensed dollar that goes towards these grants that are used from us anglers and hunters and anglers to use for conservation. And we got the grant. We got a water use management plan in place. Still working on it.
Yeah.
But at least we got to the table. I'm
They
sorry
got
to
the
say,
ball
but did we
rolling.
have any antis there? No, we didn't. You look around the table and it's the people that are using the resource and not taking advantage of it, being stewards of the resource.
Yeah, exactly.
Awareness is just.
Awareness.
It's just gone through the roof recently. The amount of fishermen I talk to, even compared to the late '90s, it's just. I think the internet is a huge part of it. But
Yeah.
They don't just come up to the boat launch anymore and the fishing was great or it sucked and I got this and off they go.
Yeah.
They're talking about these wild fish and what can I do to help out or things like that. It's just amazing to listen to these guys compared to like even what it was 20 years ago. I mean, and like I said, internet is probably the biggest thing.
Well, yeah, I mean, people sometimes curse social media onto it, but however, it's the best tool we have to create awareness onto it.
Yeah.
I mean, you get someone interested in a fishery or hunting or whichever, they care about it, and now if something happens to it, now they'll show up. Where before, if they didn't know anything about it, they weren't engaged into it, it was just something that happened and passed by them.
Yeah.
So, I mean, sure, you got to be careful, especially on some lakes. You don't tell, I'm hammering 9-10 pound rainbows and it's only stocked with 2,500 fish and all of a sudden the whole internet's there.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, that happens.
And that does happen.
Yeah.
For sure.
But I mean, a family fishery like this, it's come on out and fish it. You're going to tell people about it.
Yeah.
On a different note, just backtracking. Remember how we were talking about the graph of Kokanee when you're looking at numbers over the years, over the decades? Mm-hmm. It's amazing. This lake, when you look at the counts in the 80s, granted there was only 3 or 4 counts, so they might have missed, the timing might have been missed, but they had years where there was 50 in the creek.
50 fish.
Yeah.
We had as high as the last couple of years, 35,000.
35,000.
Wow.
And I've seen numbers in the 80s where it's like 50 or 100 or 250 or whatever. It's very low. But I'm thinking, we were just talking about it. There was no awareness. There might have been no water in the creek, for crying out loud. The fish might have just been sitting there at the mouth, not being able to get in. And that's why but now we don't have that anymore because we're so on top of it. Right?
That's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If there's no water, 2 weeks prior to spawning run, somebody's going to be up in the arms saying, we got to get water in the creek. And it gets done somehow.
Yeah.
But back then, nobody cared, right?
Yeah. And if
there was a couple of guys that counted fish, and then everybody else was like, why is there no fish in the next few years? Because they weren't able to spawn. Right?
Yeah.
They wanted to,
Yeah,
but yeah. And then back then you had to handwrite a letter in the ministry. Now, going to BC Wildlife Federation usually, and they have a auto-populated letter right to your MLA if there's a real concern,
Yeah.
On the hunting side, we've been trying to get licensed dollars to go directly to wildlife management.
Yeah.
I know it kind of goes, a lot of it goes general revenue, some of it goes Habitat Trust Foundation.
Yeah.
What's it like on the fisheries side?
So the last, was it 3 years ago? I think it was 3 years ago. A few years
Everything-
back, anyways.
everything
Where
switched
everything is now,
100%.
we're at 100%. And kudos to the user group stepping up and pushing pressure on it. BCWF was a big driving force. BC Wildlife Federation was a big driving force of that. And now it goes straight into all fisheries management. And the Freshwater Fisheries Society of BC is the society that stocks our lake, but they're now managing all of our freshwater lakes at a management standpoint. Doesn't mean that our ministry biologists aren't managing as well.
Well, they are managing.
They are managing.
They,
Yeah.
they call the shots.
Yeah, the ministry does.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then the Freshwater Fish Society then follows up on, you know, the stock assessment biologist says this many fish go there. That's what they do.
Right.
But you know, it's you watch their team. It's growing. We have more people in the Freshwater Fish Society. Big one is outreach right now because we have a huge drop coming because the baby boomers are going from whatever your license dollars is, $30-something down to $5-6 I think it is, whatever it is. Yeah, so that's gonna pretty much, there goes a bunch of funding. So it's up to us to get to try to take some of it out, mentor them, and get them into fishing. So more license sales because that's what's managing our fisheries right now, and it's shoestring budget right now. Like we've experienced that with these projects that we're doing. Is, I mean, a couple $1,000s can go a long way, but it's hard to get that money sometimes.
But you have seen noticeable improvement with that switch in the funding strategy?
Yeah, and a lot on the small lake side, like I've seen.
The focus seems to be on
the focus on
but
small
they're
lakes.
way easier to manage.
Yeah.
They're just
Right.
but that's traditionally what the Freshwater Fisheries Society would kind of like. That was their platform was small lakes. It was almost like they didn't even, they weren't involved with large lakes.
Yeah.
Now they, from pressure from anglers, a lot of it, right? They're being asked to put more effort into large lake management.
Yeah.
Are you guys familiar? Kokanee Lake is a pretty famous lake in BC, and they have Kokanee there. They've also had, you talk to anybody, and they all have a different story about why the fish have declined. Do you guys have a thought on that region, or?
My understanding on that is it wasn't in lake conditions. So
new theory.
It was the theory I heard. And it's again it's someone's version of it, but my understanding it was a disease that was on the spawning grounds, and it pretty much dropped the escaping rates. So they start moving fish over from a different system to rehab that fishery, and I think that they've got it under control now. There's two different stocks in that lake. You got the main stock, and then you've also got the west arm. The west arm stock, these fish they're doing really well. It's open, I think, the first 7 days of the month from April to June. You'll have to check the regulations. It's only open a few months.
Yeah,
but
the daily limit's pretty high, I think.
Yeah, it's a liberal limit.
Yeah.
And it seems to be bouncing back really well on the west arm.
Yeah.
So just hopefully in time they get the main lake, because Kokanee Lake used to be known for big Girard, like 20 plus pound rainbow trout, and you're lucky if you get a 6 pound trout out of there now. And that's because the Kokanee pretty much just crashed in that lake, and it's a big system to be able to get that stock back. So
originally they were pointing the finger at the predators, weren't they?
Bull trout or something.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess there are a lot of bull trout in there, but you can have to take a lot of bull trout to
kidding.
get that many fish. Think of like Okanagan Lake, how many hundreds of thousands of fish spawning in Kokanee. Or
those balances usually nature just works it out.
Yeah.
From predator to prey, right?
Yeah.
Right. In the fish world, anyway.
Yeah.
So this whole virus thing on the spawning bed might be a more. But how do they prove that? You just don't know. It's just another theory.
It's going to take time for them. Yeah. So hopefully it comes back, because that's just it's a beautiful system out there. It's a big part of that economy too out there in the West Kootenays. And I haven't had a chance to go catch a 20 plus pound Girard, and I hope I can in my lifetime, so we'll see what happens there.
It's cool that the Kokanee is a foundation to that whole system.
That's right. They are the bottom. We call them they're an indicator species, right? So they're like the canary in the coal mine. So if something starts to happen with your lake system, the first fish that usually that gets affected is your Kokanee. So if we start to see Kokanee dying off, whether it's lake squeeze because of low oxygen levels or such, that's a telltale sign that something's not right.
Yeah.
So, I mean, looking at Kokanee Lake, it's like the big fear was, okay, we're losing Kokanee, but is there something wrong with the system? And are we about to lose our trout as well, right? So the trout seem to be doing okay. They're just not as sized because they don't have the forage to feed on because of the, those feeder fish aren't there anymore. So, I mean, any major lake large lake in the interior of really the Pacific Northwest at BC is that Kokanee is your main forage fish. I mean, how old is a rainbow usually when they switch over from like bugs and such to fish?
I guess that depends on the lake, but I would say probably 3 years old.
3 years old?
It's more like what length they get to.
Okay.
Right? It's more in that 12 to 14 inch range. They'll start eating fish, and then they really take off.
Right.
Yeah.
Like you go to Skaha Lake and Shuswap Lake.
got
You got a fish
going
here.
on.
And those lake systems, you get a decent rainbow. It's puking up small kokanee, 2-year-old kokanee on it. Yeah.
Big bait, big fish.
That's right. Well, we're using. It's funny when you take people out rainbow fishing and you pull out a 4-inch plug and they're like, "What are we fishing for, tuna?" I'm like, "Oh no, you watch." And then you catch a 2-pound rainbow off it. And,
Yeah.
They're predators. I mean, they're a pretty fish, but they're predators, right?
Yeah.
All right, Jason, we gotta get this one in the boat, bud.
Are you ready?
Yep, keep reeling, keep reeling. There we go. Oh, there we go. That's a nice kokanee.
We lost Jason.
Yeah, Jason had to go to work. Poor him.
I mean, we didn't lose him. He didn't fall off the boat.
Yeah.
But
Well, the way he was
Had to
catching
drop
all those fish, he was about to kick him off the boat.
so he had the first 4 fish.
He did. Yeah.
Pretty sure.
Well, that one's one rod. I don't know why. It's same setup on each side. Always that one, the right side of the boat, right?
Yeah.
So, but no, Jason had to go do the. He was on Creel survey today, so being the long weekend, it's important that he gets that data for the amount of users out here on the long weekend, right? So it's important to
Yep.
know how much pressure is coming in on the long weekends, just the same as all the other ones.
And it's 3:30 now. So some time has passed.
We put some time in today, man.
This is a hard day.
We have been
Fishing
dealing.
wise.
Yes.
Like pretty easy day otherwise.
Yeah,
But
I mean, we've been BSing most of the day here. I don't even know if we're really paying attention to the rods, but
my hands smell like fish, so that's
Yeah.
a good sign.
that's the smell of success right there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
what's happened here? We've got how many fish do we got?
7 in there now, I think. Yeah, 7, and then Jason's 4. So, yeah, we got 11 fish.
Yeah.
Lost some,
Yep.
but today's this is a typical day on how fickle and moody these fish can be, right?
Yeah.
So
I'm finding they're biting very softly.
very subtle, like a very subtle bite.
Yeah.
I think it has to come down to in these scenarios where we have low pressure, low pressure, and then followed by a little bit of a high pressure, and then it drops again. We've got cloud cover like crazy today. The wind picked up a bit, but we're dealing with pressure systems. And the one thing about these fish is that they're really sensitive to that.
Yeah.
But that's what makes them fun to go out and chase after them. Because one day you're hammering them, and the
Yeah.
next day you got to work for them, right?
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, we tried everything. Pink, orange, green, blue.
Yeah, I think my entire lures, all my lures, the good news, they're all
Yeah.
clean. They've been washed really nice. Yeah, maybe a couple Dodgers I haven't thrown in, but yeah, it's all right. It's all nice and clean.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
like you said, there's fish in the cooler. We're happy there.
Yeah.
You can fire up your Bradley and get some nice smoked
Yeah.
kokanee.
I got to get that thing back from Mike. It's his, but I had it at my place. So I don't know if you heard the episode we did. We got the pig.
Yes.
We bought a pig and
Yeah.
we broke it down. And he's been smoking all that stuff, and it's just amazing.
Oh, really?
How good it tastes. Yeah.
Nice.
So I'm gonna have to pry it away from him so I can do some fish
Yeah.
for a couple days.
You might have to do a little trade there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jason, wealth of knowledge.
I got to know him quite a few years back now, and he's also an angler, like
Yeah.
a die-hard fisherman.
Yeah.
So when you can get to know someone to talk fishing, but also have just the passion he has. I mean, I know it's his profession, but he just talks with so much passion about working hard to sustain these fisheries and enjoys the fisheries just as much. Like I said, we could BS all day long on the boat. Those few hours flew by with us on the boat like
Yeah.
nothing, right? So,
Yeah.
and he does a lot of hard work for the community. and he's got a really good Facebook page as well that he reaches out and just kind of keeps everyone up in the. He's the first person almost everyone goes to see if something's going wrong, and if we get it's slow fishing, oh no, it's okay, it's not been winter killed, and it's called Okanagan Angler 101 is his Facebook page, and he's always like the bio that's actually reaching out to the community. So it's good friend, good fisherman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. So yeah, we talked a little bit about conservation overall. We talked a lot about some details on Wood Lake here where we're at today, Cow Lake, some projects that you guys were doing, fish trap.
Yeah.
How does that work? Like, what is the fish trap?
The fish trap is pretty much, if you can picture a 3-foot wide by 5.5 feet long cage made from expanded aluminum. It has to be aluminum because it'll rust, right? So it's quite light. We put it into a creek, and at the front of it is blocked off, and then at the downside side of the stream there's a funnel. And when kokanee come up, or any fish are coming up to spawn, they are wanting to go upstream.
Yeah.
So this funnel, literally with the wide open part, or the widest part downstream, they go into this funnel, they swim up it, and then they get stuck in the cage. The funny thing is, if they fall back through the funnel, they go back up because they are so dedicated at going upstream to spawn. So for kokanee, because they go up and because they're like salmon, they die. There's no way. It's a one-way trap. Okay. Right. Now on some traps that are for rainbows or other type of species of fish that have to go back and forth, and the trap allows for that. But our trap is, we pretty much block off the small creeks that we have. The Coldstream Creek that we're working on this year is probably about 9 to 10 feet wide, and then the water level is probably about 3 feet high. So we sandbag it up on the sides, and then we have like a fence that leads into them. We put the trap, and then the only access for these fish to go up is through that little funnel. And because that water surging through it, it triggers them to run up into it. And the big project is that you don't want these fish in that trap for a very long time, because they will sit there and they will run themselves against that metal a little bit. So that's where the volunteers for the Osceola Fish and Game Club and the students from UBCO and other really great community members come out. And first thing in the morning, between 8 and 10, we do the check. We count the fish, scoop them up the net, over top, upstream they go. And then again between 2:30 and about 5 o'clock. And then Jason's team comes in and moves them, or does all the counting from about 11 o'clock at night till, well, it depends on how big the run is, sometimes till 4 o'clock in the morning. They tend to run the most throughout the nighttime. Yeah. The reason why is that's genetics. It's saying this is a safe time to run because there will be birds, predator birds, there will be, raccoons. We've had raccoons on top of our trap. I've had to go down and there's 3 raccoons sitting on the top of our trap. Yeah, they are. They're like, oh, look at this, right? It's literally shooting fish in a barrel for them, So the kokanee, they know to. It's funny. It's like I said, it's genetics, right? They just know to go at night. So that's when they mainly move. So, but that's our next big project coming up here is get that data, support, making sure that we have our angler surveys going on these lakes to ensure that keeping tabs on Wood Lake here, that it's continuing to be sustainable. Yeah. And then Kalamalka Lake, we want to see a little bit more information on that lake. So where we come in is we're really kind of lobbying for money, getting some money and showing volunteers, getting the volunteers, and so that way the biologists can do their work. They work on shoestring budgets, right? Right. So
awesome. Yeah. Yeah, it's good to hear. Good to hear. It's a lot of community is a word that comes up quite a bit. Outreach. Do you find that there's like a growing community of anglers, or is it kind of static, or do you see more like girls and women? Do you see any trends?
Yeah, hugely. Yeah. And I think a lot of it is, again, I think social media has a lot to play with it because people have been living vicariously through each other, and they're seeing these pictures online. And one of the programs we run is a Learn to Fish ice fishing program. So we take out anywhere between 300 and 400 kids in one day. Like these kids come out and these families come out. We teach them how to fish, introduce them, and we have the Freshwater Fish Society of BC also runs more Learn to Fish programs, but it gives those people access to a resource that they were scared to go and do it themselves, right? myself through BCFishn.com, I try to do as many as angler seminars free to the public, right? So to teach people and share this information, just like in hunting, we have that, you know, that aging population, and we need to help and mentor each other.
Yeah.
I think that our community has done a really good job, and it's happening more, is that people are taking each other fishing and showing, and having good fisheries like a Kokanee fishery where you can actually go out and catch abundance of fish on some days. It gets them hooked onto it.
Yeah. I think it's a good progression to go from fishing into hunting. That's what I did.
Absolutely.
It was, you know, Mike and I have talked about when he asked, do you want to start hunting? And it was kind of the whole story about how he got all this gear, and we wanted to do our core, and it was a way to get out and hike and stay fit and kind of do all this stuff. But like, I don't know if I would have said yes had my other buddy the year before not taken me out fly fishing with some float tubes.
Right.
And you know, I jump in this float tube, and I'm like, I got a few beer behind me.
Yeah.
Push off. I'm paddling around. I'm like, hey, I can get used to this.
That's right.
And then we actually caught a couple of fish, and then I was hooked on the fly fishing thing. As much as I'd like to do it more, but it's that it was an activity where you go on an adventure in pursuit of a resource, and then you get to turn it into food. And I was like, well, if hunting's anything like this,
Exactly.
it's going to be a blast. So
Yeah.
that's kind of what flicked the switch for me. And I think for people that aren't familiar with, you know, hunting at all, maybe fishing Kokanee is probably a good place to start.
It really is. You're right. Like, not every angler hunts, but almost every hunter fishes.
Yeah.
Right. And if you talk to a lot of people, it's the first thing. I grew up fishing, then I got into hunting.
Yeah.
And I think too, like being out there fishing, you're, you know, sitting there in your float tube. Well, you probably saw an eagle swoop down and, you know, grab a fish or some ospreys or whatever. You're just getting connected to the outdoors, and you start to appreciate those things at a really intimate level, and you want to get more. You almost start to crave more.
Yeah.
And that was for me. Is like, you're right. The food thing was awesome. Like, I like to be able to go home with a nice, you know, few fillets of fish, but then the hunting side of things came to the, I want to know where my food comes from, and I want to be a part of that. And then it became, wow, it opened my eyes to conservation things in the wildlife side, and this resource that needs to be taken care of, and to be able to bring home some from field to table, there's just something to be said about that. You got a bite on your rod there, bud.
I think I got a fish.
Yeah, you got a fish. There you go.
You gotta put this on standby.
Yeah. Okay, pause it.
Well, we had another fish in the boat. Little guy.
Yeah, another one on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All this talk about fishing and hunting. It's getting the fish on the line.
Yeah.
It's like when you're busy doing something else and you really, like, I'm all for fish biting, but at this point, we're trying to get something done, and that's when the fish start biting.
Well, it's like grab a sandwich and start eating lunch. Get your hands busy, right? You'll get a fish on.
Yeah. But yeah, it's been a good day. What's that, 12 fish now?
Yep. That was 12, yeah.
I think we're almost done here. We're gonna
I think it's
wrap it up.
wives are gonna wonder where we are.
Yeah, exactly. You said this is one of the longest days you put in.
For Wood Lake, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we've had some challenging days on this lake once in a while, but this has been this is probably the top of the list. But you know, go figure. Whatever. Yep. We're kind of the only ones out here today. Hardly anyone came out, so maybe they saw this pressure system coming and knew better. But hey, like I said earlier, it's better than me being at home, sitting on the couch watching TV. Love being out here.
Oh yeah, it's a good day.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you wanted to add?
You know, just if anyone's interested in the area that wants to get involved with these fisheries, and you know, look us up at bcfishn.com or the Osceola Fish and Game Club. We're always looking for people that want to step up and help out. And in your own community, is that, you know, the best thing you can do is find your local fish and game club, find out what they're doing. There's lots of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that you just don't know about, because a lot of these people are humble and they don't talk about it. You don't see it on Facebook. It just happens. And a lot of these guys have been carrying that torch for many years, and it's time for us young guys to step up and carry that, you know, take on that and help them out. And without us getting involved, and the more awareness we create to a fishery and that we care about that resource, ministry shows up, the biologists show up, the money shows up. If you don't, then you're just going to all of a sudden not have the resource that these natural resources. So
Yeah.
that's my biggest recommendation to people.
Awesome. Well, yeah, thanks for everything you do. And Jason.
Where's man? My pleasure.
Yeah. And thanks for bringing me out.
Yeah, we got to do this again, man. A little bit sunnier today, a little better conditions.
Yeah. So, yeah, it was a blast, and we'll do this again sometime for sure. We're missing Mike today. Maybe we can do... Actually, we were talking a little bit about ice fishing, too, which I...
Yeah.
Maybe we can make a podcast out of that.
I'll make you a believer of ice fishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can do some lessons on that one, and until next time.
Sounds good, buddy.
Cheers.
Cheers.
This episode of Rookie Hunter was brought to you by the Wild Sheep Foundation, Sitka Gear, and North Arm Knives. As always, it is hosted by Kelly Mullner and myself, Mike Peterson. It is recorded, edited, and produced at Mountain Stream Audio Productions in beautiful Kelowna, British Columbia. Original music written by the one and only Kelly Mullner with help from Graham Ord, Darcy Booth, and Chip Sleedermean. If you want to help us out, there's one thing you can do. You can go to iTunes or wherever you get your podcast from and leave us a 5-star rating and a review. And don't forget to subscribe. For more on the show, head over to our website, therookiehunter.com.